The sky so far, but I can't lose it.
Let's be innovative. Let's challenge a norm. Let's raise the bar. Let's be the elite.
A new beginning, another opportunity to make a statement. Lionheart celebrates its roots with the car that started it all. 18 races to determine who is the best in the most exciting form of auto racing on the planet. 200-mile-per-hour Indy cars inches from disaster or glory. There can only be one Lionheart Speedway Series champion whose name will be etched into the Lionheart history books. The Lionheart Speedway Series presented by Moser Racing starts now.
With just 3 rounds to go, the Lionheart Speedway Series visits the action track, and today
Action is expected, chaos is expected as we wind ourselves closer to the end of the 2022 Lionheart Speedway Series. Welcome to the Richmond Raceway and welcome to the HyperX 175 at Richmond. Hello everyone and welcome back to RaceSpot TV and ESTV. My name is Arjuna Kankipati, filling in for the one and only Justin Prince. Alongside in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth though is a familiar face in the form of Andrew Kinsella. Let's dive straight into our graphics esports countdown to green because Andrew, it's been an electric season and once more we break out the DW12 and we do it on a short track where you and I were talking just before we went live, and the reality is we are expecting plenty of cautions here today.
Absolutely, Arjuna, as we bring up our next level racing schedule here. This is Richmond. We have 3 races left, and this one is going to be pure chaos from the looks of it. We have 30 plus drivers coming out tonight, and it is the shortest track on the schedule, not just left, but in general. And it is going to mean that the confines are going to be tight, the tempers are going to be short, and there's going to be plenty of action here tonight.
In a month's time, we will wrap up the season with the double point showdown at Auto Club, a Lionheart staple. But with time running down, let's run you down through your graphics esports drivers standings because Matt Taylor is only a handful of races away from potentially winning his first Lionheart championship. He's being hunted down by the likes of Joe Branch, who's missing in action today, taking one of his 2 drop rounds for the 18-round championship. Of course, that will shake things up and maybe put a little bit more pressure onto Branch heading into the closing stages of the championship. Luis Gonzalez Nunez has found some form. He runs in 4th. The best of the rookies is Shane Coogan in 5th. Andrew Wood and Dakota DeMay, the other 2 rookies that currently run inside the top 10. And after last time, it slightly opened up as we run you down through the HyperX team standings, Andrew. And you know, it's fair to say there is some bias towards Powerslide Motorsports in this commentary booth, but they currently lead by just over 70 points, a margin that's grown from just under 30 last time out.
Yeah, Powerslide did a good job last time out, and they have been doing a good job all season. It's been the story of sort of consistent finishes from them. They've had, generally speaking, at least 2 of their drivers in the top 10 on most every circuit, so it's allowed them to get this advantage over. But 4D Sim Racing is still keeping them honest in this, and Dark Horse Racing, yes, it's a long shot, but with double points at the finale, anything can happen there, particularly at a track like Auto Club where the unpredictable does often happen. But we do have some battles further back as well, Synergy Motorsports being 2 of the closest, as well as Graphics LC Madworks that has been quickly rising through the standings as well.
Of course, that was a mid-season change for some of those drivers in that Graphics LC Madworks camp. Interesting team championship. Interesting rookie class as well as we grab a look at the butt kicker rookie standings. It's Shane Coogan that leads, but he's in front of the veteran of IndyCar. We talk about the IndyCar experience. Andrew Wood has it in all 3 of the eras available on iRacing of American Open Wheel Racing. Dakota DeMay, Sam Ryman have been good as well, as Ryman has been just 4 points off the back of DeMay. Jacob Oster may be a surprise to see him down in 6th, but it speaks to the quality of this rookie class that is competing in just the 2nd season of this Lionheart Speedway Series that's running down through your Gomez Sim Industries series details. In Season 2 of your Lionheart Speedway Series, the page has turned into now the 9th year of the Lionheart Racing Series competition. We campaign the Dallara DW12 with a custom fixed setup built by the man sitting opposite me in the virtual commentary booth, Andrew Kinsella. No in-car adjustments, it is just your 2 hands in your 2 feet. Drivers fighting for just under $7,000 in cash and prizes, with your champion walking away with a Moser Racing Direct Drive wheelbase and Formula Rim, as well as a next level racing GT track cockpit. We mentioned double points for 2 of your Triple Crowns, so 1 more left as we get set to crown not just a new series champion, but a new team champion as well. Let's talk about this track, the history of this event in your Moser Racing event details, as the DW12 returns to the action track for just the 4th time in what is building to be 10 years of Lionheart. And despite this being a track where passing can be difficult, the winner has never started on the front row, the highest up they've started being in 3rd. And the first time the drivers got a taste of the action 12 months ago in this Lionheart Speedway Series, we had 6 drivers leading laps and 1 driver leading more than 100 laps, but it was Alexis Newsom leading only 17 on her way to HyperX victory lane. And like we were saying, Andrew, if we turn back the page all the way to the very first season of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, you find 11 cautions, a stop-and-start race that is frustrating not just for us, but for the drivers as well.
Yeah, that stat about never starting on the front row just astounded me when I read it, but it is true, Arjuna, and it just goes to show that this race isn't just about track position. We talk about how difficult it can be to pass just because of how narrow and how small the track is, but strategy is going to be a very important part of this race. Working the cautions, working the fuel, working the tires, all of that is going to lead you to victory lane, and you can't just rest on your laurels and rest on a good qualifying performance here.
Qualifying still going to be important, maybe just to keep you out of some chaos on the start as we get ready to go racing. Of course, the closest margin of victory, just under 0.3 of a second. The races in general here tend to be close, but by no means are they photo finishes, so do not expect that. Let's talk a little bit about what always we should be talking about when it comes to a Lionheart race, which tends to potentially go into the realms of fuel saving, and it is pit entry. And Andrew, it is not necessarily the most difficult of pit entries that we've had this season. By no means is it easy.
No, you definitely have to make sure that you get yourself slowed down well and truly before you commit to pit lane, because you basically have to commit to pit entry on the back straightaway if you're going to make the pit in here, because you saw it on that last shot there. It's basically the middle of turn 4 where the wall starts, and you have to be well below the line before then. But I think the real story here at Richmond isn't pit entry, it's pit exit, because there's always that bump on the exit of turn 2 that no matter what series we go to, it always seems to claim at least one driver, Arjuna.
Looking at times in practice, 1,000th splits the top 2 with Matt Taylor and Tyler Graf, I think, trying some qualifying runs, but 6/10 splits first through 28th. And I think one thing that you and I were both eyeing and a little concerned about, and maybe adding to our worry, is the fact that at a ultra short track here, Andrew, we're going to pack 29 Dallara DW12s around, and that's where traffic management's going to come important with lap times down at the 15-second bracket.
I was going to say, with 15-second lap times, you're going to find that the back of the field is almost going to be 3/4 of a lap behind by the time the first couple of laps are done, as the drivers start to string out a little bit. So really, we talk about qualifying not being the be-all and end-all, but you do not want to find yourself that far back that early on, because it can be very, very difficult to negotiate your way through traffic. And the leaders always get a little bit of deference on a short track just simply because of the nature of the racing here. So expect the leaders to be able to lap a little bit more than if you mess up your qualifying and being able to pass that way. So it's always really fascinating to watch what happens in the early stages of a race like this, because there's going to be a lot of chaos. A lot of people are going to be trying to move and get their way through the field, and there's going to be a lot of impatience in those first 20-odd laps.
Let's talk a little bit about track conditions, because we're racing into the evening, and we'll race hopefully not completely into the darkness, but we'll have to wait and see. Richmond, of course, fitted with night lights, so it's not going to be an issue. Relatively dry in terms of the air, not much wind to speak of as well, and it's almost as cool as we can kind of get here, Andrew. So really it is as optimum conditions for racing as really one can ever hope and expect to get.
Yeah, the conditions won't be a real factor for any of these drivers here. Certainly it'll definitely be the case where it's all about battling the track and battling each other, I think. As you say, basically perfect conditions for racing at this point.
So we've got about 30 seconds left in this practice, then we'll tick on over to qualifying. We'll throw 5 minutes on the clock, and drivers will get the track to themselves. It will be solo car qualifying, 2 qualifying attempts, and you would likely expect to see, just as we work further and further into the evening, that we will see a lot of cars stay in pit lane until the last stages of qualifying. Here's a look up above as the time will tick down. Matt Taylor continues to be quick in this Dallara DW12, and with Joe Branch not running today, second in points, the points leader already showing the pace. What will he do in qualifying as we get set to go fast here in Richmond? And what are the keys to going fast in this point, Andrew? What are your keys to understanding the best way to build up speed?
Yeah, so first of all, you have to recognize that your first lap is just going to be a write-off here. It's going to be, you need to be focusing on maximizing the speed for your second lap. So It's all about getting yourself wound up as quickly as you possibly can. You have a nice wide entry into 3 on your warm-up lap. Keep the car nice and high, get as much travel as you can while still going through the corner, not scrubbing too much speed. Keep it nice and high here through turns 1 and 2 on your first lap again. Just light, nice, gentle movements of the steering wheel. Don't scrub too much speed here. And then this is where it all starts to happen, is starting on this lap. This is the money lap, the second lap here. You're going to dive right down to the inside, get as close as you dare to that yellow line, but do not touch it. It'll fling you up towards the wall. Then coming down into turn 3, similar thing. Right down as close as you can. There's a little touch there for Matt Taylor. He's going to come up and hit the wall. That's disaster there for Matt Taylor.
Now, where will that place him? So first, provisionally, Dean Moll will jump onto the outside of the front row, but here come the times on lap 2, and already Matt Taylor 2/10 off the pace as Jacob Oster managed to go fastest. Excuse me, I thought he went fastest on lap number 1, but that lap time 2/10 off the pace on lap number 2, so strong contenders struggling as Mike Rigney will go up into first. But like I said, plenty of drivers yet to come and punch lap times onto the board.
Yeah, you'll find a lot of drivers will stay out or stay in pit lane as long as possible. Just give the track a little bit time to cool off just a little bit more. A couple of degrees can make a big difference here. We're looking at George Anzaldo coming to the line here. A 15.918. That was not a bad lap from Anzaldo, but certainly not, I think, what he was hoping for there.
Creighton Carter will go up into the top 5 on his second lap, as now 14 cars have attempted, leaves half the field still left to go, but Trevor Malone and Ryan King have end-of-line penalties, so they won't be a factor in this qualifying session. We'll see Ron Hacker jump his way up into the top 10, but still plenty of cars and plenty of quick cars, the likes of Tony Schowen, Andrew Wood, and maybe even Matt Wagner yet to go fast. Here's Matthew Short starting to build in qualifying, Andrew.
Yeah, Matthew Short, another of the drivers that we're thinking might have a good shot at it here today. He's got a nice sharp new paint scheme on that car as well, Arjuna. He's coming up here. Probably a little bit of an unorthodox line coming off the corner there, and I think it cost him a couple of tenths there, certainly at least a half a tenth there. Michael Goodman, though, this is the driver that we've been waiting for. He's one of the drivers who's been on fire in qualifying. I believe that it's 5 poles on the year for Michael Goodman.
Right on board with the Powerslide Motorsports number 99. Now with Joe Branch missing, this is where Goodman and Schowen will have to combine. 5th for Michael Goodman, who actually goes slower on lap number 2, so despite what Andrew Kinsella says, it may actually be possible to go faster on lap 1. Now, did Big Joe Hassett just tug the apron and manage to still control that car? We'll get the indication on lap time here as he comes to complete lap number 2.
Yes, he controlled the car, but the lap time is going to be slow. That's a 16.223, so that was a big slide. And the thing about the second lap is it's faster, but you have to make sure that you nail it. And it's inches here at Richmond that we're talking, not feet, that these drivers are shooting for, because they're putting so much speed in it. They don't want to lift through 3 and 4, and we've already seen drivers hit the outside wall.
Luis Gonzalez Nunez is coming on strong in this Lionheart Speedway Series. He's jumped to the outside of the front row, but here comes Andrew Wood. He'll start what will be his second qualifying lap with a 15.836 lap number 1. Just listen to the commitment. 9th on the first run, with just under 2/10 splitting him from Rigney. Tyler Graf finds 6th spot, but here comes the Wood machine. Will duck to the apron. It's only a 15.778, and it's only good enough for 9th.
Yeah, not a bad qualifying effort from Andrew Wood. That'll keep him out of most of the issues in the latter part of the field there, but I think he was probably hoping for more. Matt Wagner is another driver that we've been waiting on here. He's been having some really good qualifying pace, but he also hits the outside wall.
Shows you just how committed you have to be at this track, Andrew, and with that, I think the final car that will roll in qualifying will be Craig Forsyth, because we just have 26 seconds left. If you left pit lane now, you're not setting a time, so Isaiah Dupree, Trevor Malone, Gary Gotzo, Tony Schowen, and Hugo Gallus will start at the back as Craig Forsyth will get to finish lap number 1. I don't even think he'll get to finish lap number 2, except he's still got 10 seconds left and he's halfway down the back straightaway. So he will be the very final car to punch a lap time here in qualifying. And as the clock ticks over, we get set to go racing here at the action track. It is bound to be electric, and with just 3 races left in the 2022 Lionheart Speedway Series, the championship fight is reaching its final stages. Let's run you down through today's butt kicker starting grid. It'll be Mike Rigney's first pole position of 2022 in this Dallara DW12, but he sees last time out's race winner alongside with Luis Gonzalez Nunez looking to go back-to-back for the first time this season for him. Gabe Wood will be inside of Sam Ryman with two drivers having impressive qualifying performances there. Brian Beard and Tyler Graf will round out the top 6, while row 4 sees Michael Goodman alongside Jim Herrick. Andrew Wood and Creighton Carter bookend the top 10. Jacob Oster misses out on the top 10 with Gavin Sanders alongside. Row 7 sees Craig Forsyth in the blue and white alongside the championship leader Matt Taylor, almost full quarter of a second off the pace. Ron Hacker and Dean Moll 15th and 16th, with Cody Wendon and George Anzaldo sharing row number 9. Matthew Short and Shane Coogan complete the top 20. James Watson and Matt Wagner 21st and 22nd, with Big Joe Hassert rolling off 23rd. Ricky Harding alongside. Dakota DeMay, the final car with a lap time on the board, with Tony Shaw and Trevor Malone as Isaiah Dupree, Hugo Gallus and Gary Godso electing to maybe try and stay out of the carnage. We have 30 cars here ready to go at the action track. The question will be how many actually take to the start. Still waiting for Isaiah Dupree. The rest of the field is already stacked up and ready to go. So 233 laps, 175 miles here, and as the cars will roll with all 30 on the grid, let's take this opportunity to run you down through today's featured onboard cameras. Let's start with the pole position man, because riding with him is Butt Kicker. Sim racing is better with Butt Kicker. Visit thebuttkicker.com. From the back of the field, Isaiah Dupree sees Graphics Esports over his shoulder. World-class design from the real world to virtual. Visit graphicsesports.com. The man behind Graphics Esports rides with Gomez Sim Industries, makers of high-end esports equipment. Visit gomezsimindustries.com. While your championship leader rides with HyperX. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers, and HyperX is always ready to game. Andrew, it feels a little bit silly to try and talk about any strategies at this point in time, but in terms of expectations, what do you think we've got in store for us?
Yeah, I think this is going to be fast, it's going to be fierce, and this is going to be a crazy first few laps here as they cycle around. We have 2 pace laps here. The drivers are just going to be thinking about what's to come. They're going to be concentrating on what they're going to have to do to get themselves up the pack, particularly those in the back, and they're going to be visualizing how to get through the carnage that is inevitably going to happen here in these first few laps.
How important will clean air be, and how much of a shock is it going to be for the leader when they arrive at the back of the pack in probably less than 30 laps?
It's definitely a little bit of a shock, and it has caught out a fair number of leaders in the past here. We've seen drivers in the top 5 suddenly lose the front end when they catch up to the rear of the field because they just don't expect what it's going to be like when they finally get there. So definitely a danger to be on the lookout for if you're in that top 5.
And when I say 30 laps, that's less than half a stint. It is about 7 minutes of racing. That is why if we go green for a bit at the start, from there, who knows what to expect. But this is the start of the HyperX 175 at Richmond. It's Mike Rigney that will get us underway. We're racing at the action track. Top 3 get into line, single file as well through the top 10, but plenty of fighting outside of that. It's Rigney from Nunez from Wood, but a 2-car breakaway at the front of the field, Andrew.
Yeah, nice start there from the front row with Rigney and Nunez. They've really done a good job getting through there, but it's the back in the heart of the pack that the action is really there. Going 3 wide here in this battle for about 10th and 11th position. You can't do that for very long around Richmond.
You can't do that in general for very long unless you're somewhere like Auto Club. 2 wide, about now 3 rows deep. Send to the inside, further back in the pack. I think that was behind Matt Taylor as maybe Ron Hacker looked to try and take advantage. Taylor trying to work past Creighton Carter. In terms of lines, Andrew, which one would you prefer right now? How is the line going to migrate over the course of this long race?
I think really where you want to be is on the bottom side if you can be, but then as you get further and further back in the field, you just really want to be where the car in front of you is, and you want to get at least half your car either higher or lower than the car in front of you, get some clean air on those wings, make that car turn, because as you know, no tools in this DW12, it's straight up just your steering and your throttle and your brakes. So all you can do to get a little bit more turn in the car is to try and get a little bit of that overlap going.
And we are now single file throughout the entirety of the field. And I think we'll stay like this just for a little bit as we settle into a rhythm. There's a look at the movers and shakers at the start. Plenty of drivers able to take advantage, but inside of the front 3 rows, it's only Brian Beard and Sam Ryman that have switched around. Forsyth +2, Oster +2 as well. Big losers in the form of Ricky Harden, who I think elected to run straight to the back, but talked about the danger of going a lap down, and as you can already see, as your leader comes across the line to tick away lap number 7, is going to come across the line now to finish lap number 9 in a second. It's already almost 3/4 of a lap that splits your leader from the back of the pack.
We just had a spin.
It was Ron Hacker, and now the caution flies, and so we will interrupt the rhythm and slow it down once more. Mike Rigney will have to find where the pace car was and try and figure out what happened to Ron Hacker, if it was by himself, was it assisted? Was dirty air a factor here, Andrew?
Yeah, I think dirty air a little bit of a factor. He gets a little bit low, but then the real problem is just coming off of turn 2, and we see this time and time again. If you put in too much steering input through 1 and 2 and you don't release it quick enough coming off the corner, it just unsettles the rear of the car and it sends you on a one-way trip to that inside wall.
Tried as he could to lock it back down, but the good thing is, despite the caution coming out, never really, I think, in danger of bouncing back up into the path of oncoming traffic. So we retire 1 of our 30. And so I said less than 30 laps before we got lap traffic. We were closing on 15 laps and getting lap traffic. Bit of a split call on pit entry, though, as drivers inside of the top 15 elect to stay out. Outside of that, though, basically everyone thinking, we'll get some tires, we'll get some fuel, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a very understandable strategy call from everyone. If you're in the top 15, you definitely don't want to give up that track position and that clean air, particularly if you're in that top 5. But if you're past about halfway in the field, you might as well come down. You might as well get a little bit of a tire differential. Yes, we only had 12 laps, but it's still better than no tire differential whatsoever. And you might be able to get a pass or 2 done if you're in the back of the field now.
And as well, 233 laps. The fuel window estimated around 70 laps. So if you pit around now, it means you only, and we go green from here to the end, which I know I'm asking for a lot, Andrew, but if hypothetically we did, you only have to find now 13 laps of fuel rather than 23 laps of fuel to get to the end of this one without making an additional stop. It's a lot more workable, it's a lot more feasible.
It is, and this is one of the oval tracks where you can really save a lot of fuel. You do spend a fair amount of time off the throttle, particularly if you're in traffic. You can roll the corners a lot more. And then the other thing I will say, Arjun, is even if I were coming in now, I'd actually be probably hoping for about 4 more cautions in this race, because you save basically 2 to 1 under fuel, or for fuel under caution. So if we get enough caution flags, they could make it from here.
We'll have to wait and see. So Rigney, Nunez, Wood, the top 3. A couple more cars, I think, going to come back in and try and top off once more. Wenzen, Godso, and Harden amongst those electing to do so. In a race like this, Andrew, how do you pace yourself mentally? I talk about a lot the fact that since we're missing those physical sensations, there's a lot more stress on your mind to focus and to make sure you're on top of your game. And knowing how tough these races are, even without the cautions, how do you make sure you stay in the groove?
I think the main thing, Arjuna, is just to pace yourself and to keep yourself in the right frame of mind. But we're about to go back green here, so I'm going to throw it back to you.
Well, let's see if we can go longer than about 11 laps this time by. A solo car incident sees Ron Hacker retire, but we're back racing for this HyperX 175 at Richmond, and once again, single file inside of the top 4. It's side by side for 5th as Tyler Graf takes advantage, as Sam Ryman may be napping on the restart, may lose another spot. Michael Goodman bullies his way past as well.
Goodman working the inside there, and Andrew Wood also looking to the inside of Ryman here. So some nice battling here for the top 6 positions here. Be interesting to see if Ryman can get some momentum on that high side, maybe make that upper lane work a little bit for him. But for right now, it seems like that low side really working for these drivers in the top 10.
Question is, will Jacob Oster be able to take advantage? You can see him trying to set up the run, but as Andrew Wood clears himself and Jacob Oster looks for the move to the inside, Sam Ryman saw him coming late and had to run himself up the track, but they all figure it out just in time. But Sam Ryman, able to slot back into line for the time being. Already as we pick up the track map, you can see there's a straggler. Gary Godso in 29th position is only about 5 seconds away from, a couple of seconds away from being lapped. We jump on board with your race leader, and I think Gary Godso may have an issue. He pulls to the side and lets Mike Rigney dive into turn 3. It gives Rigney a bit of respite, but already ticking to lap 20. Lap traffic once again, half a lap away.
Yeah, you can just see how fast Rigney is gapping the field, and he's going much faster compared to the rest of the field who are all in traffic right now. We're looking on screen here. Gavin Sanders just got around Tony Schowen. Schowen's done so far a good job, but he was one of the drivers who came down pit road on that first pit stop, and it's put him back a little bit in the pack right now, and he definitely did not want to see Sanders getting out in front of him. Oh, we've got a little bit of smoke on the back straightaway.
Now, who was that from? So Gary Godso still on pit lane. No idea where the big puff of smoke came from, but it must have been generated by someone. To correct you, Andrew, Tony Schowen did not come down pit lane, because remember, he started at the back. There's still smoke on the back straightaway. I have no idea what that is. But he started at the back, I think tried to stay out and get some track position. He is +8 overall, at least inside of the top 20 as it stands for the time being. There's Rigney, and there is traffic up in front of him, and now you start to wonder, how hard will you fight to stay on the lead lap? Because Andrew, we talk about this a lot in IndyCar racing, no matter what series it is, but you are encouraged, you are somewhat incentivized to fight to stay on the lead lap.
Yes, you are. Of course, we have no lucky dog rule here, so if you stay in front of the leader, then you stay on the lead lap. If not, then you're going to have to either get it back the hard way by passing them back, or by finding a lucky caution where you somehow cycle in front of them before the pit cycle is done, and then basically you lose a pit cycle and you're at the back of the field on worn tires, and that's no fun either. So you're really, really incentivized in this series to, as you say, try and stay in front of the leaders. So generally speaking, you see a little bit of courtesy, but not a whole lot of it given to the leaders in situations like this.
Report is that it was
Hugo Isaiah Dupree.
Yes, as I was about to say that Hugo Gallus was the one that brought out the smoke. It's Isaiah Dupree that brings out our second caution, and I think it's now the third victim that we've had on the exit of turn 2. Isaiah Dupree takes the immediate trip back to pit lane. So as we go ahead to pick up what happened to him as they ran through turns 1 and 2 side by side. Now I wonder, will he get down to the apron? No, it's just again unloading off the banking where the car pitches around, and once again the nose goes into the wall and the 98 goes round and round.
Yeah, it's one of those situations where you just can't have that much steering input as you get off the corner, because the car just continues to want to rotate around on you. When you set up a short track car, basically you really want a lot of rotation in the middle of the corner. Otherwise, you find yourself pushing off into the wall on exit. So it's really a compromise and a fine line that these drivers have to walk, and they have to do a good job themselves in the car of managing both the push in the middle of the corner and the looseness on exit, because there's really no way around it from a setup perspective.
So let's see if we can find exactly what happened with Hugo Gallus that's brought out the smoke, and he actually does a good job of locking it down, you know, Andrew. We haven't seen anyone being able to do that so far. We'll pick up a couple more looks at it if we can, and just talk us through what he does differently that allows him to save this after clipping the apron initially.
Yeah, so the difference from him is because he clipped that apron, his car was sort of walking around on him rather than it just continuing to rotate off the corner. So that gave him just that little bit more ability to continue to steer into the car. He had already started to save it just a little bit so that when he locked it down, he wasn't going quite as an acute angle towards that back straight wall, and did a good job. I think he got a little bit of minor damage to the front wing, but other than that, real good job by Hugo Gallus there.
And the timing of the caution, I think, means that he will stay on the lead lap and now comes down to pit lane to, I Would assume get some damage repairs. There he is. Handful more cars came in this time by. Ryman, Oster, Forsyth, Herrick, Carter, and Zaldo. Bit surprised to see Sam Ryman pitting at that point of the race. It leaves just 10 cars yet to box, and we're not even halfway through a fuel run, Andrew.
That's true, but Sam Ryman was one of the drivers who was losing a fair number of positions there, so he just might have been not comfortable on those older tires. So in situations like that, you can definitely decide to come down pit lane. The other thing to consider is we are now at 30 laps, Arjuna, so this is definitely well within the window of making it if it goes green from here. So a number of these drivers are probably thinking long-term here. Getting off strategy now is probably a good call for many of the drivers, particularly in that back half of the top 10 area. Tony Schowen, we were talking about him just before the caution. He's another driver who came down pit lane as well here. So we've got a number of drivers a little bit off strategy, but at the same time, I like what they're doing here.
Let's be a little bit realistic, though. We're unlikely to go caution-free from here, especially if we can't even get halfway through a fuel run without having a couple of cautions. It is difficult, though. We're not trying to throw the drivers completely under the bus. Instead, I'll throw Andrew completely under the bus by saying you compromise on setup incorrectly, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, this is one of those tracks where there's not a lot you can do to make the car turn through the middle of the corner while at the same time having it stable on the exit. So it really comes down to how comfortable you can get and how many practice laps you can get in managing the different stages of the tire, the different stages of the corner, because you think that going around an oval is really easy, but it's not. And these drivers are constantly putting in micro inputs and micro adjustments throughout the entirety of each corner, and you have to do it so many times in this race. It's easy to make a small mistake.
And I feel like the best way to describe this, right, is this type short track racing in an open wheel car. It's like pod racing. It genuinely is.
It is, yes, absolutely.
So lights off again, second caution, and once again it's a solo car incident. So now we see 2 cars out of the field. It's Isaiah Dupree that joins Ron Hacker in watching from the sidelines. It's still Rigney that leads. He's led every lap so far as the green flies once more. We're back underway with the HyperX 175 at Richmond, approaching halfway through in terms of fuel. With 2 cautions, of course, the fuel window will have opened up. Once again, single file at the front as they just settle into the groove. One thing I don't think I really talked about is Jim Herrick has now had an issue on the back straightaway and buried in the wall. I have no idea how he didn't get the caution out for the 3rd time.
Yeah, that was a blessing from the iRacing gods there that we didn't get the caution, but it looked like an entirely different incident for Herrick. I think he just got a little bit high through turn 2 there, might have had a car underneath him and just hit the wall on exit and buried himself in that back wall. In fact, he might have had 2 cars underneath him.
Let's see if we can pick it up here. Yeah, no, just I think to some degree almost runs himself up into the wall. We'll get another look at it, and we'll get a closer look at it, Andrew, and you'll talk us through what you see.
Yeah, so Anzaldo was thinking of taking it 3 wide there, and I think that spooked Herrick a little bit. Didn't know exactly where Anzaldo was, and while he was checking his mirrors through the center of the corner there, I think he just lost track of where he was, and then suddenly the wall is right there because this track is only 3 lanes wide, so the exit, particularly at turn 2, the wall just comes up so quickly.
Yeah, you can see as well to some degree he just lost momentum on the restart, and that's why he found himself at the back. We rejoin the live pictures as George Anzaldo now finds himself spun, and the yellow will fly once more, and it's again the exit of turn 2 that has claimed yet another victim.
And we had just been looking at Anzaldo in that incident with Herrick, and I think it's a similar deal to what happened before. It's cars at the back of the pack, they're just putting so much wheel into the car simply because of how much aero push that they get at the back of the train. So they're putting in more and more wheel, and then suddenly it just spins around on them because they don't release it in time. And it's been 4 cars in the 20s, unfortunately, that have brought out the cautions today.
Do you pit now if you're at the front, Andrew, halfway through the estimated fuel run?
That's a difficult question, Arjuna, because I almost think that you're committed to staying out at this point, because we did have a number of drivers come down the last time, and those drivers will cycle out in front of you. So I think you're pretty much at this point committed to staying out if you're in the top 10.
Find out next time by. 3rd caution of the race so far. I'm just saying, the Lionheart IndyCar Series is coming off of a race where previously it had 17 cautions, and it was one of the most clean races we've had this season. I don't want to say this is trending in the opposite direction, but I think what will happen is if we get a good green flag run and everyone has to start dealing with dirty air, including the leaders, Andrew, it will just turn into a very different sort of a race.
Yeah, once you get a little bit more spread out, you don't have to put in as much input into the corners, and the problems start to go away on the corner exits, I think. So I think the ticket for this race to go green is if we get them spread out just a little bit more. Also, if the temperature comes down just a little bit, maybe we can get a little bit more grip in the track, and that'll help as well.
I think at this point we are basically guaranteed to be racing into the night, but we will wait and see as the lights remain on the pace car. 3 or 4 drivers on pit lane now. Not too much. I think it's a handful of drivers that boxed last time by and see an opportunity to make their life a little bit easier while not really losing too much of their track position. So in terms of tires, Andrew, I'm curious what it's like for the guys at the front as we continue to work through the laps and have more and more restarts being put into the tires.
Yeah, I don't think that these guys are going to be experiencing too much degradation at this point. We really haven't had the runs go too long, and that's where you start to really get the heat cycling into the tires and really starting to degrade the tires. At this point, I think the longest run we've really had is about 15 laps, which isn't that much on a tire that can go 70, 80 laps. So in general, I think that they'll be just fine up at the front. I think the danger is more in that 10 to 15 area who maybe haven't come down pit lane quite as much as the others have. They're going to be starting to feel that the effects of those tires a little bit more.
The top 10 have yet to pit entirely. 11th through 16th pitted, I think, under the first caution. They are 30 laps into quote-unquote a run, as Hugo Gallus, I think, has been told by the iRacing race control to let the field pass. So the way to do that, park on the back straightaway. Very difficult. To be fair, this is one of those tracks, not maybe as difficult as it would be at Bristol with these cars, because I don't want to think about how pitting there would work. But this is one of the more difficult tracks to figure out in terms of lap traffic, like we said earlier. Lights go off on the pace car, so we'll restart with 43 laps done. Still, top 3 yet to switch around in terms of positions. Why do I get the sense, to some degree, Andrew, despite the fact that we've got these cautions coming and throwing wrenches into plans, today may be the first time that we get a winner actually from the front row?
It's very possible, but I still say that those drivers who came down at lap 30, they're really in the driver's seat right now in terms of strategy.
Gabe Wood jumps into our YouTube chat to say that apparently the heat cycles is making the tires better. So apparently Andrew has built a magic setup that gets tires adding longevity as we go. A much better jump this time from Mike Rigney at the front of the field, but even though Luis Gonzalez Nunez was napping, it's not going to be an opportunity for Gabe Wood to take advantage of. We go back racing. Jordan Zaldo already has had an issue on the start straight as we power out of turn number 4, but I think we'll stay green, but now this is something the leaders will have to deal with.
And Enzaldo's pulled out right in front of the leaders, and this is going to be very sketchy as they come through here at speed. Enzaldo's going to have to be very careful here to let the leaders by. He is now 1 lap down, but he's coming right in front of Gabe Wood there.
Not ideal, suboptimal, to quote Lewis McLeod, as now George Enzaldo will have to let the field go on past. Side by side, Wood finally able to clear himself off, but now split from the top 2, not for the first time tonight. Check back in outside of the top 20. Cody Wendon, Ricky Hardin, Tony Showen will fight. These are, of course, all drivers that would have pitted. The potential to try and make their lives a little bit easier to get to the very end of this race. 30 drivers started. We're down to 27 running, of whom 24 are left on your leading lap. We really haven't had to contend with too much lap traffic, but likely to be a factor after a cycle of pit stops, because the reality is, Andrew, the drivers inside the top 10 will owe us a pit stop inside of 30 laps.
Yeah, I would extend that probably to maybe lap 82, 83, given how much caution we have, but it's definitely going to be coming sooner rather than later. And the difficult thing about Richmond is you don't just go 1 lap down, you go 2. Oh no!
And now Oster will incur the wrath of the RaceBot TV commentary booth because he becomes the next victim of turn number 2. Did tell me he was not looking too much forward too much to today, if I can stumble over my words even more tonight. Another driver trying to go low, another driver trying to just work their car through the corner, and around she went, and Oster didn't really have even time to recognize what had gone wrong.
And once again, it's because he was getting pinched down there by James Watson, and Watson was doing nothing wrong there, but because he was getting pitched down on exit there, he had to keep that steering input in there, and he might have even lost it even before that. I wonder if he just nicked that yellow line just a little bit there, Arjuna.
So Oster brings out what is now, I think, the 4th caution of the day. Sam Ryman, Creighton Carter, Tony Showen, Ricky Hardin, Dakota DeMade, and Jacob Oster will all come to pit lane. No surprises amongst those names, if we're being totally honest. This window now for the drivers at the front likely extended above 85 laps as shadows start to get cast down on the tracks by the night lights here at the Richmond Raceway. Let's talk about track conditions once more. It's cooled a couple of degrees, but not too much as we get ready to hit 8 p.m. here on iRacing Day at the action track. Once again, not much wind as well to speak of. So 50 laps are done. At what point, Andrew, if your car at the front of the field and we continue getting cautions, will you really elect to come down to pit lane?
Yeah, well, I honestly am surprised by the strategy that is going on here, because by my calculations, you can comfortably make it with one less stop from here. So all the drivers who have stayed out thus far, I just don't see the play right now.
This is one of these races where you just endure. Again, running down through the top 5, Rigney, Nunez, Wood, Beard, Graf. After this, let's talk about the rest of the season, Andrew, because we've just got 2 races left. It's over to Kansas. It's over to Auto Club to finish the season off back-to-back from short tracks to intermediates, and then about 3 weeks off. We get the full bevy of what American Open Wheel Oval is all about.
Yeah, we really do, and Kansas is often an underrated open wheel track, I find, Arjuna. It's sort of that hybrid between what the D-shaped ovals used to be and what Chicagoland tried to be, but I think it does it better, if I'm being honest, than Chicagoland does. You can really get a lot of fun racing going on at Kansas. The tires tend to go off fairly well there. It should be a very interesting race coming up in 1 week's time.
That race, as with every race, live here on RaceSpot TV and rebroadcast on ESTV. Hopefully Justin Prince will be back with you in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth as we get ready to crown our first champion of the Lionheart 2022 campaign. Should be fun. Got an interesting fight going on in the Lionheart Retro Series with Mike Rasmas running at the front there, and well, we're just waiting to coronate Phil Krause when it comes to the 2022 Lionheart IndyCar Series.
Yeah, by the way, I blame you for Phil Krause's dominance, because you crowned Adam Blocker the king of Lionheart, and Phil Krause had to go and take his crown away from him.
Yeah. First year that Lionheart RaceSpot worked together, I did dub Adam the king of Lionheart, the Lionheart king. To be fair, this is not the first time that Phil has done this to Adam.
No, it hasn't, and you should have learned your lesson the first time.
Yes, but I didn't have anything to do with the first time. That was before my time, is at least the excuse that I've got. Lights are off on the pace car, so 4 cautions in 54 laps. Hopefully we can start to get a little bit of a rhythm under our belts, because it will start to frustrate those up and down through the field. Once again, Rigney in control. Last time by, he jumped Nunez and gaps Nunez. This time, not such a big jump, but it's still enough of an advantage that Rigney is clear on the run into turn 1. Nunez and Wood, no fighting there. It's Malone and Mole that will fight side by side. A terrible run off the corner, and now checking up those behind.
Yeah, it's a hornet's nest back here. It looks like Gavin Sanders looking to the inside as well of Dean Mull, but Mull just got a torrid restart there, and unfortunately he's just been swallowed up here.
Big separation, 1.3, 1.4 between 8th and 9th positions, where Matt Taylor has worked himself up 6 positions with the championship leader now running up in 8th. Exactly what he would have needed. Plenty of fighting. Look at them check up as they run through turn 1. Maximum commitment, maximum reward, right? That's what they say. Well, we finally have to start dealing with the threat of lap traffic as your leaders work through 1 and 2. Your stragglers at the back of the pack come across the exit of turn number 4. 85 laps, does that sound about right to you, Andrew, for these drivers at the front of the field?
Yeah, I would suspect 85 at this point, assuming we don't get another caution between now and then, which at this rate we very well could. But if it stays green, you're looking at about 85 laps. And again, you go 2 laps down here, so it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Oh, we've got a spinner on the back straightaway.
And it's Cody Wenzen that will bring out the 5th caution of the day. I'm starting to lose track of this one, but I'm getting shades of Remember the 17. That is for sure. Another beaten and banged up car. Another car spun off the exit of turn number 2. Andrew, there's a common thread here. They're all using your setup, so I'm going to blame you.
Fine. I'll take the blame for this, and you can have the blame for Phil.
There we go. Let's take a look at the RaceSpot TV replay. And again, he's the car down low. I think that's the latest we've seen a car snap, though, and it snaps viciously on him.
Yeah, and again, it's just... you can see just how much wheel input they're putting into those cars to make it turn, because you don't want to let the car drift up because you have a car up above you, but then you're turning so hard you just can't get the wheel straightened up in time when you land on the exit of the corner.
You know, it's funny. We launched the IMSA Esports Michelin Global Championship yesterday, and I am utterly exhausted now that we finally got it out of the way. But in a series where, for the first time, a lot of those teams had safety cars as a reality in an endurance race, they were very disappointed and frustrated to some degree that we didn't get a safety car in yesterday's inaugural sprint. I feel like this is my punishment for that because, yeah, yesterday went about as good as it gets, and unfortunately, this is about as stop and start as you can get. A couple more cars will come down to pit lane. Is there anything magic about this number, Andrew? Why do we have so many cars diving down to pit lane this time by?
Again, I think it's people realizing that they can definitely cut out at least one stop from here. So I think that's really what's gone on, is more and more people are cluing into the fact that, hey, we can really make it from here, especially if we get more cautions, because we're going to be able to stretch out the strategy just that much more.
Lionheart and fuel save races. There are people that complain about how often it happens, Andrew, but it's not like the organizers go out and plan it that way. There's a reason why cautions always change the game in terms of these oval races.
Well, and I mean, I got news for those people who don't like it. It is that it's just a reality of racing. You watch a real-world IndyCar race, and all those drivers are talking about is fuel the entire time, because it's just so important to get it right. So even if it's not necessarily fuel saving, it's getting the strategy correct. So these drivers might not necessarily have to save, but they do have to pit at the right point in time here.
I have a feeling the cars at the front may actually be able to go something like 90 laps at this point. When the fuel window was estimated at 70 laps, it's all just being done under caution. And these cars don't have fuel maps, Andrew. That's one thing that you, for example, in the Lionheart IndyCar series benefit with the Dallara IR18, is the ability to knock the car into a fuel map designed specifically for cautions, which is great for fuel saving. You just have to remember to turn it back into the right mode when you go back racing.
And I have done that
I think we've all
exactly
had that
one time, and I have never made that mistake ever again after I did that, because that does not work under green. But yeah, it's one of those things. You can definitely still fuel save in these cars a tremendous amount under caution. You're just using the clutch, you're using the throttle a lot more to do that, throwing it up in maybe a little bit of a higher gear as well.
Yes. Sorry, getting word from a couple of cars on pit lane. They are indeed aiming to go longer than 90 laps now. For those that have not come down to pit, that is 9 cars that have yet to come down pit lane. Dakota DeMaid will roll down to the lane again to just top up on fuel. Stacked grandstands, I tell you. It's a shame that IndyCar doesn't come to Richmond, at least at the current time. Although I do remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, I think Tony Kanaan once told us during 2020 in the pandemic lockdown that Richmond was the track he was most looking forward to in 2020 before it got cancelled.
That is true, and Tony Kanaan is a little bit of an ace here, particularly in the IRL days, so I don't blame him for wanting it, but not necessarily my cup of tea.
I think some of these drivers would be a little bit frustrated as well. Back racing, 5 cautions so far, and only 64, 65 laps in the books. It's still Mike Grigney that leads. He's led every single one of the laps so far, and once again, it's a great jump at the front for him. Dakota DeMade has had a big issue and has taken the tow back to pit lane. So another car bites the dust. 30 cars is down to 25 running. Only 22 on the leading lap. Not as much separation this time, Andrew, in the heart of the pack.
We've got a couple of bunches here, and Giorgio Anzaldo got a little bit of a bad start there, and he's one of the lap down cars, so it's created some separation between the back half of the field and the top half as well. So, it's what we're hoping for here, Arjuna, is just the cars settling down a little bit, settling in and getting a bit of a rhythm going. And you can see there Joe Hassert, as we ride on board with a car that's not spinning off a turn 2, you can see just the difference in wheel inputs between what the stable cars are doing and what we saw with the spinners, is just how much less wheel input he had when he was going on the exit of that corner there.
Great shot out of turn 1, because with a track this small, the benefit of being in person at the stands or just having a camera is you can basically see the entire facility. Oster and Forsyth will duke it out side by side, diving down through turn 1. It's the battle for 14th position. Outside line will give you a ramp off the corner, but Forsyth continues to enjoy the momentum down low, and he'll clear midway through turns 3 and 4, the 72 up to 14th.
Yeah, but Oster's trying to do the over-under here, so he's looking back in below Forsyth. This has already gone bad once for Jacob Oster. Fortunately, he was able to keep it on track there again, and we stay green.
At the front, 7/10 now the buffer that Mike Grigney enjoys over Luis Gonzalez Nunez. After the victory at Charlotte, he continues to be at the front in this Dallara DW12. Skateboard that runs third with Brian Beard, Tyler Graff completing the top 5 with 2.3 seconds, splitting first through 5th positions. Still yet to see traffic play a major factor, and if anything, it's the most separated that the front and the back has been throughout the entirety of the race. Yes, Rigney will have to deal with Gary Godso, but other than that, we may not have lap traffic before we get to the first cycle of pit stops.
Yeah, I think that at this point, if we stay green, it's going to be a nice clean track for these leaders to come in, and that'll actually be good news for some of the drivers further back who don't necessarily have to come down right away as well, because it'll allow them to inherit that clean track, and if anything, it'll even make that clean track even bigger as well.
Mike Grigney had to go down low to get past Gary Godso. Had a little bit of a wiggle, nothing major, but one of those moments when you're at the front of the field that you'd really, ideally, loved to try and avoid. 10th and 11th starting to get split up, and it's allowing those that did not come down pit lane just yet to get a little bit of crucial track position. It's Gavin Saunders who is in 10th position, the only one of those cars that have made a cycle of pit stops so far today, able to work their way to the back of the front of the field. So Joe Hassett working past George Anzaldo. Next in queue will be Creighton Carter trying to work his way down the inside. Has to funnel his way all the way down left as they work down the back straightaway, but poor George Anzaldo is getting swarmed. There's not much he can do about it.
Yeah, and I think George Anzaldo's got a little bit of damage on that number 6 car at this point, because he's just not able to keep the pace quite as well. But he's fighting back on the outside of Jacob Oster there, and Oster's probably a little bit gun shy after what's happened earlier in the race as well. So this is going to create just another little bit of a gap and a little bit of separation here, as basically cars 15 on back are going to be stuck behind Anzaldo for a little bit here.
You say what happened earlier today. I just say what's happened rather this entire season for Jacob Oster. Definitely, I don't think what he intended when he entered this championship at the start of March, when we went racing back at Homestead, Miami. Check in with the likes of Tyler Graff, Michael Goodman, and Andrew Wood. Andrew Wood obviously trying to work his way forward as we get ready to crown the Butt Cooker Rookie of the Year. It is 27-17 points, one of the two that splits Wood from Shane Coogan, who is currently running down in 11th. So again, running well for Andrew Wood, who, remember, did have that hefty points penalty from earlier in the season as well, Andrew Kinsella.
Yes, absolutely. And Wood needs this result. He needs to stay in front of Shane Coogan and keep on chipping away, because he doesn't have that much longer to do so. He's only got this race and 2 more to go, and he's still well within striking distance, but it's got to happen sooner rather than later for Wood, that he gets another good result and gets back into the battle with Shane Coogan for that Rookie of the Year.
We mentioned no Joe Branch, and that means the championship leader, Matt Taylor, has the opportunity to just put points on the board, and with 16 of the 18 rounds counting to the championship. Likely to be one of those races where we expect Matt Taylor just to accumulate points as we ride on board with the HyperX onboard camera and power down out of turn 4 and fly our way into the opening sector of the lap. Traffic starting to be a factor now because Ricky Harden had a moment, and here comes Mike Rigney having to work his way past Luis Gonzalez. Nunez has closed up as a result.
Yeah, and you can just see the effect that dirty air has on some of these cars as they have to negotiate this traffic. It really does create a little bit of havoc and a little bit of that accordion effect as Gabe Wood has also entered the picture here right behind Luis Gonzalez Nunez. But just to touch on Matt Taylor, we talk about Joe Branch not being here, but it's not going to be just a cakewalk for Matt Taylor in this race, because I was doing a little bit of research, and Joe Branch's drop week right now is a 19th place result, so that's 27 points. That's if Matt Taylor makes a mistake and somehow finds himself out, he could still end up losing points overall with how the drop weeks work.
Yeah, drop weeks, one of those things that always keep us on our toes when calculating championship pictures. They say never trust a commentator's math. Well, Lewis McLeod, we were talking about this yesterday, someone told us that they wouldn't trust him with a calculator. How do you expect to trust his math as a result of that? Pit lane going to be busy though, because while the likes of Gabe Wood have stayed out, it's Rigney, Nunez and Graf that will box, and for the first time we have green flag pit stops, Andrew.
And this is going to be costly for your leaders here. They were doing a good job staying out for as long as they did, but at the same time, now is when they have to pay the piper, and it'll be interesting to see just how much time that they lose on pit road here.
Andrew Wood continues to power around out on track. He was one of those cars indicating 92, 93 laps was the target, and while Michael Goodman will peel off to pit lane, Andrew Wood inherits the lead of the race, has not stopped for 91 laps and counting, and as we watch the rejoin from Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Mike Rigney, who fight side by side for the net race lead, cold temperature for the tires, it's Nunez on the outside still fighting side by side. As the caution comes out, my word, midway through the cycle, and once more the game has changed in the blink of an eye. It's Creighton Carter, guess where, the exit of turn number 2 that sees the caution out for the 6th time today.
There was actually multiple incidents there because Brian Beard was sitting perpendicular to the pit exit there as well, so take your pick on what incident that was. We could have had it from both there, but yeah, Carter, the exact same thing. He was just a little bit too high. I don't know if that was the actual caution there.
So you're saying there was something, he does back up, and that's never a good sign.
Yeah, that it could have been the backup there from Carter.
So let's see if we get, Brian Beard was in pit lane already. Now, I'm assuming he's going to get service, drop, and roll, and it's going to be on pit exit that he has his trouble. Now, you talked about how treacherous pit exit is. Oh my days. Oh my days, you were right. Take your pick of incidents right here.
And Gabe Wood is very lucky that he was still in ghost mode there, because his pit stall was so close to the pit exit that he was still in ghost mode, but he got very, very lucky there.
And when we talk about the game being shaken up, 15 cars are scored on the lead lap right now. George Anzaldo, the first car 1 lap down, and then a handful of cars who've had to come down pit lane, including the likes of Luis Gonzalez Nunez and Gabe Wood. Andrew Wood, as a result of extending as far as possible, will cycle out in 4th place with 3 cars in front of him on 33 lap old tires. Andrew Wood is suddenly sitting in the cat's bird seat. Trevor Malone is up 22 positions. He's sitting in 5th, very pretty as well. You've got Gavin Saunders, Matt Taylor, Shane Coogan, Joe Hassett, and Craig Forsyth all taking advantage as well. Pit stops at Richmond are a treacherous proposition.
They absolutely are, but the worst thing for the drivers who pitted before the caution is Andrew Wood in that 4th position, because he is actually ahead of who are they? Gabe Wood, Brian Beard, Mike Rigney, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and Tyler Graf. your top 5 from before the pit cycle are all trapped one lap down, and they will not get a wave around.
And so the issue here, when I say issue, I don't mean issue, I just mean the point for those cars, is that Wagner, Watson, and Short have not come down. If they had come down pit lane, they would have been eligible for the wave around then, Andrew.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Absolutely, yeah.
So, the call to not come down from Wagner, significant. Remember, he runs 3rd in points. Hypothetically, still a chance of the championship with double points in that final round. Doesn't trap Taylor a lap down, unfortunately, so it's not work out in his favor. Shane Coogan in the battle for 4th in the championship will take advantage of Luis Gonzalez Nunez being trapped down in 21st position. Not even halfway through this race yet, Andrew. We've had plenty of drama.
We really have. It's been a heck of a race so far in terms of just like pure strategy, and then that strategy being turned on its head and then being turned on its head again. And at this point, we're almost 100 laps into this race, and I don't think we're any closer to predicting who's going to win this.
I have no idea. I have no idea. Let us know if you're watching who you think will win. If you're right, we will ask you for your time machine so we can join you as well as we get ready to go back racing. A new leader for the first time today. It is not continued domination from Mike Rigney. He finds himself down in 18th spot. Instead, it's the trio of Matt Wagner, James Watson, and Matthew Short yet to come down for 36th lap with some worn tires that will get us back underway for the HyperX 175 at Richmond. Now, how aggressive will cars elect to go? Trevor Malone already trying to take advantage of stacked cars up in front of them. He roars to the front. He gets to 4th. He's the first car with fresh tires.
And Malone once again takes advantage of the restart. This is about the 3rd restart where he's jumped to that inside and timed it perfectly, and he was able to get around Andrew Wood. And you say that Malone has fresh tires, but Wood is only 1 lap more, and that was under caution. So I would call them fairly equal on tires. I was just pure driving skill there from Trevor Malone.
Yes, no, I just meant he is now the first of those with the fresh tires, which once we see Wagner, Watson, and Short depart to pit lane will leave the race in the hands of Trevor Malone, as we'll get to finish lap 100 next time by, as hopefully we settle into the groove. If we went green, it's a 36-minute race from here to the end, with 133 laps still left to go. Rigney in front will try and work his way past his own little bit of traffic as well. This interesting complexion of the front 3 that dominated in qualifying, dominated the start of the race, now 1 lap down and having to deal with dirty air.
But the thing about that is that they are right still near the front of the field, so they are trying to get their lap back the hard way. We talked about this earlier. There are 3 ways to get your lap back here, and this is the one where if you can be successful at it, it will work out the best for you. So Wood, Nunez, and Rigney are all trying to get back by the leading 3 the hard way here.
On board with Matt Taylor as the reflections in the front end continue to show the sun dipping below the horizon. Works out of turn number 2. No drama so far in this restart, as the tires very much have come up to temperature and pressures. Matt Wagner has been able to break away with the aid of traffic behind him, as that traffic almost ran itself into the wall. Was that Michael Goodman?
Yes, that is Michael Goodman, and Goodman is your first car 1 lap down with Gabe Wood right behind, so that's 2 out of the 3 lap cars there that have gotten much closer to that lead. Meanwhile, Andrew Wood has negotiated around Matthew Short, and Trevor Malone has fallen back as well, so we've got a little bit of moving and shaking going on here, Arjuna.
Now we see what fresh tires are worth, as Andrew Wood will go to the back of James Watson and start to work past him. A lot of work's thrown into that sentence. It will be Matthew Short who now defends from Gavin Saunders. Like Andrew mentions, Trevor Malone just got a bad exit out of turn number 2. Maybe a little bit of dirty air. Allowed Wood to get past, allowed Saunders to get past. Malone able to stymie the bleeding. Settles into 6th, at least for now. Wagner continues to extend his advantage. If we take a look at the track map, that 71 car leads Wagner in the train, so it's Creighton Carter that's trying to stay not 2 laps down but 1 lap down, but I think he has lost that battle. Meanwhile, the very tail end of the pack yet to fire their way through. Now the move to the inside from the 10 as he tries to work through turn 4.
And this is the tense moments here for Gavin Sanders, is making sure that he gets this move done cleanly here, doesn't get too loose there, but you see the car of Matthew Short, he was really high there through turn 2, and it just cost him. It's allowed Gavin Sanders to get up into 4th place, and I gotta say, shout out to Gavin Sanders here, a really nice run here. He's probably the only rookie in the field that is giving Jacob Oster a run for his money for the worst luck in the Speedway series. So it's great to see him having a good race here.
Yeah, sometimes you just have a bad year. Think back to what Luis Gonzalez Nunez was like last year. Just some of it was very much self-inflicted with some bad decisions, but often just wrong place, wrong time. It happens, and he started to turn around this year and make some better decisions. Gary Gozzo goes yet another lap down as the field will fly on past him. Matthew Short now already a full second back from that number 10 car. Malone not really making an inroad just yet, and with these tires now for the drivers that pitted most recently under caution, I was about to say they're 20 laps old, but I think Dean Moll and maybe Hugo Gallus have both had an issue, as that is Gallus leaving the scene of the incident. Dean Moll rolling away very slowly.
And let it be known, Arjuna, that this did not happen on the exit of turn 2.
No, it happened on the exit of turn 4 instead, and Dean Moll lost it by himself. Caution was already out, so Hugo Gallus took to the grass in avoidance. All right, on board and walk us through what happened to the winner of the inaugural Lionheart Speedway Series race.
Well, it's pretty simple. He hit that yellow line there on the inside, and as soon as you do that, you have two options. You're either going straight into the wall with the front end, or you're going straight into the wall with the rear end, and Dean Moll chose the latter there.
Yeah, it was pretty obvious, wasn't it? Doesn't get more obvious than that. Let's ride on board with Hugo Gallus and see what it was like from his perspective, as Matt Wagner, James Watson, and Matthew Short will all be coming down to pit lane. So as we near the halfway point of this race, I think they've decided that now is the right time to go. And all that fighting will mean that Mike Rigney, Gabe Wood, and Luis Gonzalez Nunez will now get their lap back.
Yeah, and this is really huge for them. It will put them at the back of the field, and they won't be able to pit, so they're likely going to be behind some guys on fresher tires than them. But we know that they're fast, and this really does put them back in the fight again. So happy for them that it's all worked out at this point for them.
So it will be Wood, Saunders, Malone, Taylor, Coogan running in the top 5. All bar Wood are up double-digit positions. Once again, it is trending in that direction where the winner does not emerge from the front row. Regardless, let that alone, the winner's not emerging from inside of the top 10 as we run right now.
Well, you say that, but we still have 120 laps here, Arjuna, and I'm not predicting anything at this point. One thing to note on that whole cycle and that caution there, Michael Goodman, he was able to get in front of Matt Wagner before the pit cycle, or before the caution came out, so he has been able to pit here. He's got fresh tires, and we know he's fast enough at least to pass a few drivers, so watch out for that number 99 car. Yeah,
he may be one to watch. Be very interesting to track his progress as time starts to wind down in this one. Sun not fully set behind the horizon, but it is nearing that point. Of course, as we race 175 miles here at the Richmond Raceway.
What year was it that they dropped the International from Richmond?
It's a good question, because I never actually knew it as the Richmond International Raceway.
Because I have a vivid memory of it always being Richmond International Raceway, and then they suddenly changed it to Richmond Raceway, and I had no idea why they did, but I'm assuming it was a NASCAR reason.
Probably. Richmond, one of those tracks in particular that really embraced sim racing in a way that many did not, with their own sim racing team that competed in the eNASCAR. Well, I guess it was the eNASCAR Peak Anti-Freeze Series when they first joined, then of course became the eNASCAR Coca-Cola iRacing Series during that team's tenure. Of course, Richmond Racing Esports then became Rise Esports, so still competing. one of the premier short tracks, of course, here in America. The car's got their wave around, lights are off in the pace car, we're ready to go once more past the halfway mark here, Andrew. It's been a slog to get here, but from here it's now going to be the point for the cars at the front trying to avoid being thrown into the situation that the leaders experienced just a handful of laps ago.
And we've got an interesting top three at the restart here.
All drivers that have worked their way forward. It's only Andrew Wood that started inside the top 10 as once more we go racing here under the lights at the Richmond Raceway. Good start from Wood, but kept honest by those behind him as they stick close in the tire tracks. Really not much separation up and down through the field. It's one of the most coordinated restarts that we've had in totality over the course of the evening so far. Wood from Saunders, Malone, Taylor and Coogan as we get up to speed.
Really nice restart from everyone. We were having a little bit of radio traffic from the back there. Looked like an issue between Gabe Wood and Creighton Carter there, but race control will look at that after the race. But right now, it's all fairly uniform until we get back into this battle here for that sort of 7th, 8th, 9th position. Jacob Oster was looking to the outside. Now Forsyth looking to the inside of Joe Hassett here for 6th.
See if we can pick up what happened there on the restart. So remember, these drivers do start quite far back compared to those a little bit further in front as Gabe Wood and Luis Gonzalez Nunez continue to fight now. And so I think there may have just been a little bit of miscommunication here because see Gabe Wood go around the outside, and I don't know what Creighton Carter is complaining about, to be completely honest there, Andrew.
I think it was Gabe Wood who was complaining because Creighton Carter, if he didn't keep going before the green came out, Gabe Wood might have gotten a black flag for passing there. Because Creighton Carter, if you're the lap car and you're gonna go down to the inside like that, you have to make sure you're staying with the cars in front. Otherwise, you're basically creating a penalty for the drivers behind you.
So I misunderstood what you were saying. There's your race leader working down the back straightaway as the tail end of the pack dives in towards turn number 1. Still yet to really experience what lap traffic is going to be like. I'm not surprised to see Andrew Wood at the front of this field, though, because Andrew Kinsella, Andrew Wood is a notable driver here, or rather a driver that is noted for liking this track and always being competitive.
Well, I do remember a certain Indy Elite Series race where Joe Branch and I basically handed the win to Andrew Wood on a silver platter, but it did launch. I believe that as Wood had a moment coming off of turn 2 there.
You don't sound salty about that race at all, by the way.
But it did launch. Basically, I believe that was his first win in the IndyCar, and it launched a newfound confidence in Wood. So it was really good to see him sort of use that to positive effect, and he's doing a really good job at the front of this field here as well. Yeah,
I recall him being on the podium in 2020, either 2021 or 2022 at this very track for the Classic IndyCar Series. So that's the IR05, an even older chassis than what we are running here today. It's been a stop and start race so far here, but we are under the night lights and the action is starting to pick up. It is starting to intensify. You're watching RaceSpot TV and the HyperX 175 at Richmond, the 16th round of your 2022 Lionheart Speedway Series. Don't go anywhere. The run to the checkered flag coming up next.
With the Butt Kicker Gamer 2, what you see and what you hear is what you feel. Butt Kicker. The future is feeling.
Welcome back to RaceSpot TV, and here under the night lights at the Richmond Raceway, we are winding down our 2022 Lionheart Speedway Series. My name is Arjuna Kenkipati, joined alongside in the RaceSpot TV commentary booth by the one and only Andrew Kinsella here for the HyperX 175 at Richmond. And Andrew, in what has been a stop and start race, we stop once more with another caution out here in this HyperX 175 at Richmond.
Yeah, another caution, and unfortunately it was Gary Godso who brought that one out. So car several laps down, but it looks like he is retired from the session now. But the big story about this caution here is it allows Mike Rigney, Luis Gonzalez Nunez, and Gabe Wood, among others, to all take, as you see, a major flip there from Gary Godso. He lost it coming out of turn 2 once again, but all of those drivers that I mentioned, they are now on pit cycle, and in fact, maybe even a little bit ahead of pit cycle for compared to the leaders.
Up and over. Get a look at the onboard with Gary Godso there as the caution is triggered for the 8th time today, I believe, in 138 laps.
Is it 8 or 9?
Let me do a quick mental count, but I believe it might be 8.
We did have a nice green flag run going up until that point, though. And I will say that as we get some of these drivers out of the field and we get less drivers on track, you will find less caution. So this could be a good sign. With under 100 to go, maybe the drivers will buckle down a little here, and we could have a nice green flag run to end it.
Yeah, and again, right, but the reason why it will be less of a factor is because there will be less dirty air out on track, and most of the issues have been in dirty air out of turn 2. Yes, we saw the one moment off of turn number 4, but other than that, it's mainly just been cars with too much load trying to ramp back off the banking. So, Rigney, Gonzalez Nunez, and Gabe Wood all getting some service, but they don't lead those that have made their way down pit lane. It is Joe Hassard in 12th that is the first car to have pit. In front of him from 7th through 11th position, drivers with 24 lap old tires. In front of them, 1st through 6th positions, it is drivers on 46 lap old tires, Andrew.
Yeah, and it creates this dilemma where if you're in the lead, do you come down pit lane? And it kind of puzzles me that they didn't do it this time, because we are close to making it again.
It's because they're hoping for the caution to fly on lap 160. That's the word from the pit wall for Andrew Wood, who will get us back underway for this HyperX 175 at Richmond. It's a great start at the front of the field. Jacob Oster trying to take advantage to slip to the inside of Shane Coogan, but not enough momentum initially. It will take a lunge into turn 3, but he's not alongside. He backs out of that one. It's Wood from Saunders, Malone, Taylor, and Coogan, the top 5.
There was a little bit of a break there around 10th position. Michael Goodman didn't get the best of starts, and he checked up the second half of the field, but they are starting to close back up, pulling along his teammate Tony Schowen there as well as they try to work their way around Matthew Short. But we are all nicely single file at this point, Arjuna.
Look from up above. 30 cars started, like we said. It's definitely fewer cars on track, but only 23 running. And only 18 left on the lead lap. More, of course, than we had a handful of cautions ago, courtesy of the wave around that saved the likes of Rigney, Nunez, and Wood. Not really fighting too much at the front of the field. For Andrew Wood, again, remember, he leads the cars 50 laps in, and Andrew Kinsella, we're not expecting Wood to be able to go as long as they did in the first cycle of the race.
No, I don't think that they will be able to, but if your pit source is correct and they are targeting lap 160, that's well within the window of both making it on this fuel load and making it to the end on this one last stop.
To be clear, they want the caution to come out again at lap 160. I doubt they would actually come down to pit lane if the caution doesn't come by the time we get to lap 160, but we will have to wait and see. We still watch as Michael Goodman, who, like Andrew pointed out, took advantage of the timing of the caution and his placement in front of the race leader to grab a wave around earlier and get a cycle of pit stops and fuel underneath them, and has recovered the best out of those that was impacted by being in pit lane or having already pitted in one of our cycle of cautions. He's inside the top 10 and looking to work forward.
And you can see him working on Matthew Short in front of him right now, and it's just so difficult to pass here. You have to really get a good run, and we haven't talked a lot about setting up a move here, but it does take several laps to really set up a move, and if it doesn't work, it'll take you several more laps to get it set back up again.
Front of the field, we get ready to hit 150 laps done, as Andrew Wood leads by almost 7/10 from Saunders in the number 10, with Trevor Malone back in third. Starting to separate up very slightly. Expect about 20, maybe 30 laps more at most for Andrew Wood from this point forward. He needs the caution in 10 laps, at least that's what his team is telling him in his ear. Top two breaking away once more with Malone's now 1 second back from Saunders. And Matt Taylor 10 spots up into fourth. You mentioned that Joe Brandt's lowest point score this season was 19. Rather the one that would be used at the drop round. So for Matt Taylor to be up in fourth, it's basically what he needed to do.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly what Matt Taylor was hoping to do. He's just got basically 80 odd laps still to go here to not make a mistake, because he's still in that danger area where if he does make a mistake that ends his night, he's going to be actually losing a little bit of points to the likes of Joe Branch.
You can see the movers and shakers inside the top 9. Everyone has moved forward. Only Andrew Wood and Jacob Oster not double-digit gains. My word. Now we see why starting at the front leading laps is no guarantee of victory. All it takes is one ill-timed caution and you're thrown right back into the heart of the action, into the thick of the battle pack. Once again, we won't really have to deal with too much lap traffic, because if Andrew Wood owes us a pit stop within the next 20 or so laps, he's still got about 7-8 seconds to find to close to the back of Gabe Wood, who is the last car left on the lead lap as it runs right now. And you look at the separation continuing to build, Andrew. Gavin Saunders is the only one running away with Andrew Wood at the front of the field.
Yeah, Trevor Malone's doing a really good, or Sanders is doing a really good job of gapping to that third place Trevor Malone. And I think part of that is just having that extra car there in front of you. It really does make a difference where you get the arrow push sort of multiplying. But don't look now in front of Andrew Wood and Gavin Sanders. There is some lap traffic coming up quickly.
We've had an issue for Tyler Graff, who has gone around in the 88 machine. Now, caution doesn't fly for that one, which I think everyone is very, very grateful for. But we'll have to figure out, again, exit of turn 2. I think we can put 2 and 2 together at this point. You don't have to be Sherlock Holmes to do that.
And it's always the trickiest part of Richmond is negotiating that turn 2, regardless of who you are. You always have to be on your toes, making sure that you're doing the right inputs, especially as the tires go off. So, as we've seen, very easy to make mistakes on the exit of 2 there. And it's, again, I think just looking to the inside, trying to make moves happen, and then keeping that steering wheel locked just too hard there.
As he hit the wall, yeah. Bonk on the front nose for Tyler Graff, who will now feel the pain of less aero at the front for the rest of this race. You'd have to assume he was already 1 lap down, and now rides in 21st position. We check in with Jacob Oster. Coogan in front, Wagner behind, rides in 6th for the time being. In front of him, just lap traffic continuing to play its part as Jacob Oster almost runs into the left rear of Creighton Carter, and now that opens the door up for not Matt. Is that Matt? It is Matt Wagner. I always get confused because Matt Wagner and George Anzaldo basically have identical cars.
Yeah, Matt Wagner in the 3 car here. He's worked himself back into 7th after leading for a short stint in the middle of the race here. He's now worked his way back up to 7th, and he's got a fast car, but no way around Oster right now.
We look rearwards with this great camera angle. 164 laps done. Again, we've had 8 cautions so far as we get a pass for 3rd. Trevor Malone has been bleeding time, and Matt Taylor has seen enough, and now 3 seconds splitting Taylor from 2nd. He gets the impetus, he gets the momentum to try and move his way forward.
Yeah, I think Malone had a little bit of a moment off of 2 there, and that opened the door for Matt Taylor and allowed him by. And I think Malone at this point, he's just hanging on. His tires are shot, and he's going to do well to not allow the likes of Coogan and Oster by him.
These drivers will come down to pit road within the next 10 laps. We're past that magic number that the pit wall on the 64 was hoping for. We've reached lap 167. As Tyler Graf enters pit lane to get the damage to the front of that car likely fixed. I would assume iRacing is going to mandate that it changes it for him whether he likes it or not. Last time by for Taylor was a 16.456. For Andrew Wood, a 13.385. He is the fastest car on the track, taking advantage of the clean air.
I believe that was a 16.385, not a 13.385, because that would be
yes.
Epic speed there from Andrew Wood if he was doing 13-second laps.
Like I said, it's been a long old couple of weeks. It's going to be a long more couple of weeks before we get to the end of November. Yes, I can read. Never trust a commentator's math. Never trust a commentator's reading as well. Back with this battle for third is Taylor, not really dropping Malone in the way that he would have wanted, but the gap has grown to a second. Now it's the question for Coogan Oster and Coogan and Oster in particular. Do they want to try and get an undercut to try and leapfrog Malone at this juncture of the race?
It's going to be interesting. I think that was Matt Taylor pitting from second place there.
I think he's thinking the undercut to try even and get in front of Andrew Wood. Now, of course, hoping for another cycle of pit stops after the rest of the cars have already finished.
And caution!
Oh my days! I can't even talk about the caution without it coming out. Matt Taylor's stationary. Matt Taylor stationary in his box. Crucially, will get his service, but will go the lap down. Mike Rigney.
Will he though?
He will, because he's already scored the lap down. Unfortunately, Mike Rigney loses the rear end of his car as Matt Taylor has spun on pit exit. Your championship leader has shown the treachery of pit entry, and I think was about 2 seconds away from potentially being forced to go 2 laps down.
Yeah, that is a calamitous series of events there for Matt Taylor. And then Mike Rigney, who had been looking so good early on in this race, led basically the first 90 laps single-handedly. And then we've seen this before, too much. Oh, I think he actually hit the apron there, bobbled, and then Gabe Wood got into the back of him. So a little bit of a different incident. It was Luis Gonzalez Nunez, not Gabe Wood.
It's still turn 2. It's still turn 2. So he did hit the apron. Nunez, to be fair, not really much he could do. What this does mean, though, with this timing of the caution, is Andrew Wood wanted the caution around lap 160? Well, this is as good as you could get, I guess. It will be Luis Gonzalez Nunez that is the only car on the lead lap that will gamble and stay out on track on 37-lap-old tires. I have to be honest, I do not like that call. I think is a dangerous call, and I'm worried about what this is going to lead to on the restart.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the play is there, because simply put, you can make it from here, and Luis Gonzalez Nunez, he can't make it. There's no way he can make it without another stop, so I don't know what the play is from him. But the big story for me, Arjuna, is, what did I say about 19th position? Well, Matt Taylor is now 20th.
Yes, and 1 lap down officially. And I still think he was so lucky. If that spin had cost him another couple of seconds, if he was tagged behind the pace car, he could have been. I've been dealing with the iRacing safety car for this IMSA series and plotting out how we can make it work. As Mike Rigney is still yet to come down pit lane with no rear wing, he's going to try and get his lap back before he will do that. If you get caught behind the pace car, it will then drop you as a lap down car to the back of the field, so you do need to be very, very careful potentially about that if you are in front of the overall leader. It's weird. I'm getting myself all sorts of twisted, but that's because we got all sorts of twisted trying to devise a procedure that worked for it. Regardless, it is the call from Luis Gonzalez Nunez that will baffle some, and I'm sure maybe there is some wisdom behind the madness, but I am struggling to see it at this point. We'll go back racing in a handful of laps with about 55 to go. It is going to be a pure sprint to the end from here, Andrew.
Yes, it is. And by the way, that is Matt Taylor, who will, once Mike Rigney pits, because I'm sure someone is going to tell him that he has no rear wing here. Once Mike Rigney comes down pit lane, Matt Taylor is third in line, but he has to get around Luis Gonzalez Nunez here.
So there's Nunez. Or rather, there's Taylor in front of Andrew Wood. There.
Yeah, sorry.
Nunez.
fourth. I can't count.
No,
4 cars behind Luis Gonzalez Nunez is Matt Taylor, not 3.
Don't worry, to be fair, I could have used my eyes as well and picked that one out. So, Rigney got the message, got the memo. He's down on pit lane. Michael O'Brien says it's full yeet time for his MadWorks Motorsports teammate Matt Taylor. But you got to be careful with Sens at this point in the championship, because Andrew Wood is an example of that. He'd be leading the butt kicker rookie standings if not for the points penalty for, I guess, what happened at Texas, if I remember off the top of my head correctly. If you're Taylor, basically the worst case situation already being 1 lap down, Andrew, is to get a points penalty regardless of what happens in this race.
If you're Taylor, you have to stay in front of Andrew Wood. That is your goal, because Luis Gonzalez Nunez is going to pit at some point.
So let's go back racing, and Nunez will jump super early as well, basically as soon as he was allowed to do so. Behind him, Andrew Wood already trying to work past lap traffic to the outside. Matt Taylor seeing the opportunity to break away, because Andrew Wood almost gets shoved into the wall as lap traffic plays its part.
And here comes Gavin Sanders to the bottom side of Andrew Wood through turn 4. He's looking to take the lead here, and he's got George Anzaldo sticking to that high line, so he might be able to box in Wood. Oh no, Wood gets spun by Malone!
Contact, and Wood will bring out the caution. Not much that he could do. I mean, you could tell from your own 2 eyes. Trevor Malone will take a look at this one, but I think likely washes up the track just a little bit too far. It started with Wood just picking the wrong line and then getting caught up behind George Anzaldo, and yeah, second look, Malone just slides all the way up the track.
Yeah, he just didn't properly account for the aero wash. There's no 2 ways about it. There's no fault there from Andrew Wood. It's all on Trevor Malone, that number 69 car, unfortunately, because Wood does nothing wrong. He leaves more than enough space, but Malone, he just continues to try and go up the track. And if you're 2x2, you have to follow in the wheel tracks of the car in front of you. There's no 2 ways about it.
And we were talking about staying out of trouble. For Trevor Malone, he shows just how easy it can be to get into trouble when you're in the heart of the pack, when you've got dirty air to deal with. Slow it down once more. I think we've hit double-digit cautions now, Andrew.
I do believe we have, and so the interesting thing to see here will be what Luis Gonzalez Nunez does. Will he still stick to this? Why he's trying it again? Because
I think maybe he's expecting about 7 cautions from here to the end of the race, and by some miracle he'll just potter around at the front and run this race to the checkered flag. But he's on the left side of the track. I'm trying to decide, is he minimizing distance or is he trying to come to pit lane? I think he's just trying to minimize the distance, which is basically all he can do at this point. Not surprised that he's going as early as he is on these restarts as well, because he's just trying to put as much distance between him and the next car in line, which now is only 3 cars behind, with Brian Beard, a car in between then Beard and Matt Taylor. I think that is Tyler Groff. And then you get to Gavin Saunders, who runs in second. He won't be under investigation for the incident with Andrew Wood. He's got full opportunity to look forward for this race victory.
Yeah, absolutely. And what a race it's been for Gavin Sanders, especially the second half of the race. He's come on so strong, and he's been making some good moves out there as well. That restart was textbook driving there and trapping the guy you're battling with behind a lap car, and he did exactly what he needed to do there. So this is the race that we were sort of expecting earlier from Gavin Sanders, but it's great to see him finally fulfilling that potential we saw at some of the beginning rounds of this championship. Meanwhile, it is worth noting that Wood is trying to limp his car back onto the track, and he has remained on the lead lap somehow, but I don't know how much damage the rear of that car has.
See, the steering at the very least looks okay.
Yeah, the trick will be the rear suspension, whether it's secure at the rear end to go at speed.
That wasn't fully up to speed, but that wasn't the worst. It did not look like it was totally out of proportions. 10 cautions in 179 laps means the average caution is thrown about every 18 or so laps. We still have about 50 laps to go, so expectation would be for at the very least 2 cautions, if not 3. Will the lights be off on the pace car this time by? Yes, they will be, so we get ready to go back to racing with exactly 49 laps to go. Does Luis Gonzalez Nunez really think he can ride this one out?
I mean, that's the only reason for him to do this at this point, isn't it?
It's got to be, surely.
But, like, I don't see a way that he can make this work. I just don't.
I'm trying to think about this as well, and I'm drawing blanks here. I've got no idea. Maybe there's a method to the madness. Nunez wants back-to-back victories after coming out on top at Charlotte. As we head to Kansas, a track where Nunez will have confidence. He goes early once more, and that is a lot of a checkup from a car going way down low, as Tyler Graf says, get me out of here as soon as feasibly possible. But we watch this restart, and now we see Trevor Malone working on the back of Gavin Saunders.
And don't look now, but that number 9 car, Jacob Oster, is also entering the picture here. And when Luis Gonzalez Nunez comes down pit lane, this is the battle for the lead. These 3 drivers right here, Sanders, Malone, and Oster.
Oster still searching for that victory as we ride on board with the factory back to number 9. Of course, defending team champions as the caution comes out again. We hit lap number 11. Caution number 11, excuse me. It's Matthew Short this time that gets involved. We'll grab a look at yet another of our RaceBot TV replays under caution. Fortunately, it's not turn 2, but I get the feeling it's Joe Hassert.
Yeah, he got a little bit run over, didn't he, Arjuna?
Yeah, just a little bit. On board with the number 11. Talk us through this one, Andrew.
Yeah, so Michael Goodman goes to the inside of Short, and Short checks up a little bit coming off a 2, doesn't get the best run, and I think Hassert is trying to look to the inside, but there's really just no lane there, and Hassert, he just got in there too deep. I think Short was not really certain of his car on this restart with the cold tires and got off the gas probably more than Hassert was expecting him to, but at the end of the day, if you're following in the tire tracks of the car in front, it's your fault if you hit him in the back.
So we slow it down once more. 11 cautions so far. And this is a track where I expected cautions today, but then I went back to look at the track stats from the 3 times that this DW12 was raced here before. Last year, we only had the 4 cautions, which did set me up with some optimism. But then back in Season 3 of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, a long time ago indeed, it was Dan Roper that took the victory then. Just 6 cautions, but back in the inaugural season of the Lionheart IndyCar Series, they had 11 cautions as well. That race was only 120 laps, though. Yes, it was 120 laps, so I shudder to think about what that was probably like for the drivers in terms of rhythm.
Yeah, that's the problem right now, is we're just not getting any rhythm from any of these drivers at this point. So even when we start to get a green flag run, they're not sure how their cars react because we simply haven't gotten really long runs yet. So it's just one of those cases where because we never really got going in this race, it's just never allowed us to truly break out of this caution cycle that we've been in.
I was just taking a look as well at the inaugural season and the race here at Richmond. 120 laps, of which 55 were under caution. 1 lead change. And still, Tim Doyle went from 11th to win that one. My word, what a track. What a crazy track this is.
It really is. There's no other track like it, and part of it is just because, frankly, this track is too small for Indy cars. And going around here is, as you described it earlier, just like pod racing, basically. But yeah, there's nowhere to go when a mistake happens. The walls are really close. The confines are so tight. It's very difficult to stay side by side. And when you have a damaged car, you're almost immediately in the way. So all of that is just a recipe for chaos and cautions.
And let's note, Luis Gonzalez Nunez now only has 1 car between him and Gavin Saunders, and by the same token, Matt Taylor only has 1 car between him and the lead lap. So Taylor is going to be fighting hard to try and get back onto the lead lap and to try and salvage, at the very least, a top 15 finish from this point forward. Let's not just talk about Taylor, let's talk about Andrew Wood, because yes, the car may have damage, but with only 16 cars currently on the lead lap, at the very least, he'll grab whatever points he can.
Yeah, and it's one of those cases where you have to expect some more carnage before this race is over. So if you're Andrew Wood, you're still staring down the barrel of possibly a top 10 here.
Lights go off on the pace car. So we're ready to go once more. 11 cautions so far. with 41 to go when we reach the line and we go back racing. What exactly do we have in store for us to close this one out? You've got the gamble at the front from Luis Gonzalez Nunez, hoping for more and more of these cautions to slow the tempo of the race, allow him to bring his fuel all the way to the checkered flag. Behind him, Matt Taylor, a lap down, trying to ensure that he gets valuable championship points on the board, and then Gavin Saunders searching for the victory with the hungry Trevor Malone behind. Nunez will pick up the throttle early as we get back racing for the HyperX 175 at Richmond, and already Matt Taylor goes on the defense on the run to turn 1.
And that forced Sanders up high, and that's allowed Jacob Oster to get on the inside of Trevor Malone. So Oster to second place. That's going to be, in what some ways, difficult for Gavin Sanders. And Malone is fighting back here, though, Arjuna.
It's not totally done. Oster continues to try, but a bit of a wiggle, and now we'll get it done, even with the sideways moment. Clears himself on the run through turn 3, and Jacob Oster finds himself on the podium, and now 8/10 back from Gavin Saunders, has got some work to do to close the deficit once more. Here is the trio at the front, though. Matt Taylor splits first and second. Nunez now with less than 40 laps to go, already having completed 58 laps since the last time he came down onto pit lane, Andrew.
Yeah, but look at Gavin Sanders here. He is probably the one driver, Arjuna, that I've seen that can follow better than anyone else. So he's really got this place figured out, because if you can follow as closely as he is right now, that means that you know exactly what you're doing in terms of lines, in terms of your throttle inputs, and you're driving nearly perfect at this point. So I'm really, really impressed by what that number 10 car is doing. Jacob
Oster put some air between him and Malone, but has yet to start to close the deficit to Saunders as he tries to fight for the race win here. As we close on 30-odd laps to go. Back in the pack, Andrew Wood, his car not totally damaged, gets in front of Sam Ryman. He's up to 14th. We'll work on Ricky Harden next. Still will have to watch the mirrors, though, because Ryman, after starting up in 4th position, may want to show a little bit more speed out of that 59 machine to close out this race. Meanwhile, it's James Watson and Michael Goodman side by side for a moment out of 2.
Yeah, there's a lot of battling here in the back part of this pack, and it really goes to show you just how much these drivers are searching for every little position and every point here with 34 to go. They all know that this is crunch time. It's no time to be pulling the punches. They're going to be going for every inch of the track that they can.
Jacob Oster has brought the gap down by 1/10.5 to about 6.5 tenths of a second to Gavin Saunders. It's one thing to pass, it's one thing to catch, it's another thing to pass here, and I'm struggling to see a way for Jacob Oster to get by without another restart and the opportunity to slingshot his way past that 10.
Yeah, the one saving grace right now for Jacob Oster is that number 8 car of Matt Taylor right in front of Gavin Sanders, because that might just give Oster the opportunity that he needs in order to find a way, maybe some aero push that affects Sanders in the wrong way. That could open the door for Oster as he starts to close in. But meanwhile, Wood is going to the inside of Ricky Harden here. He is on the move here, determined to get back from that incident that happened with Trevor Malone earlier.
He's trying, that is for sure. He will push to the very end as we reach that 30 lap to go number. Luis Gonzalez Nunez still yet to roll to pit lane. After that, top 5 will be comprised basically of drivers all with double-digit gains once more. It's been a crazy, wild ride. 11 cautions so far. We've had a decent run since the last one. About 15 laps or so and counting. Check back in with Nunez, check in with Taylor as well, who has not been able to get in front of Nunez and now is just waiting for the chance for the Team Sim Race 24/7 car to dive down and for Taylor to hope for the caution to fly.
And that's really Taylor's play here, but the thing is that how much is he going to stay there knowing that we've got the 2 leaders right behind him, or what will be the 2 leaders of Sanders and Oster? Will Taylor want to be affecting their race too much? But at the same time, he's got the championship to think about. So it's a really precarious position for that number 8 car right now.
Oster is closed. 3/10 of the gap now as we jump on board with the factory-backed car. Gap behind, 1.3 seconds. Gabe Wood trying to fight his way back into the top 10. fights with Shawan and Forsyth, but we still focus on this fight for the net race lead as Saunders loses momentum out of turn 2. Here comes the run from Oster.
Yeah, that was one of the openings that Oster's going to have to be looking for. I mean, he just isn't quite close enough at this point. He's going to have to get right up under the back of that number 10 car and find a way to force Gavin Sanders into a small mistake, and that could be all it takes for Oster to get around him. But I'm going to say, Arjuna, I think that Oster needs to do it sooner rather than later, because as soon as Nunez pulls down, you're going to see Matt Taylor starting to pull away, and you're going to see the clean air sort of return more in the favor of Gavin Sanders. And that's when you're going to make it, it's going to be much harder for Jacob Oster to find a way by.
Almost about to hit 20 to go. Nunez now 75 laps into the run, still yet to come down pit lane. Hoping for more cautions, that's the gamble that he tried. Taylor with a bit of a moment out of turn 2. He bobbles but holds on to the car. Now 1.7 splits third and fourth. It is very much a two-way fight for the lead as it runs right now as we get ready to hit 20 laps to go.
And we say 20 laps to go, but around Richmond, that's barely 10 at any other track, because you really are quickly running out of opportunities if you're Jacob Oster.
It's about 5 minutes to put it into context. 5 minutes of racing for Jacob Oster to try and find his first Lionheart Speedway Series victory. But on the other side of the equation, it's Gavin Saunders, who's had some torrential luck this season. 13 races, only 2 top 5s, an average finish of 21st position with 3 laps led. What a roller coaster, what a story it would be if he came out on top here today.
It really would be, and he's one of the really nice guys in the Lionheart community. So I suspect this would be a very popular win if Gavin Sanders came and found a way to close this out.
Those 2 top 5s, 2 second place finishes. He's been close before. He does not want to be on the second step here today. Matt Taylor continuing to lose ground to Nunez, feeding more and more dirty air to Gavin Saunders. Saunders has yet to slip up in the same manner that we saw from him out of turn 4 a handful of laps ago, but the realization will seep in that it will just take one opportunity and one mistake for Oster to be passed in the blink of an eye. We'll reach 15 laps ago. Nunez will reach lap 82 of his stint. Is there any way, Andrew, he can make it to the end?
I don't see how, particularly with all of this green flag running. We saw earlier in the race you could get to 92 with basically constant cautions every 18 laps or so. We've already gone basically 25 laps on this stint here, so I don't see a way that Luis Gonzalez-Nunez can stretch that fuel all the way for another 15 laps.
While they fight at the front, we check in a little bit further back as Wood versus Wood. It's Gabe versus Andrew, both cars with their own recovery points in mind, as Wood goes to the outside to try and build on the back of Tony Shawan, who's had a quiet night after starting at the very tail end with no lap time set down. Shawan has worked his way forward up into 11th for the time being. Still, 4 cars at the front, running line astern. It's Nunez from the lapped car, Taylor, then the net race leader. As there goes the pull, Nunez got within 12 laps of the checkered flag. He tried valiantly, but he will go 2 laps down as a result of this one. He will finish this one down in 20th.
Yeah, the strategy was just never going to work out for Luis Gonzalez-Nunez there. There was just too many laps to go for him to try what he did. I understand wanting to try something, but at the same time, he's thrown away probably what could have worked out to be a top 10 for him in search of a win. And I mean, I get the mentality, but when he's top 5 in points, I don't quite understand it this late in the season.
Yep, very much agreed with you, but I guess it's not unfair to have expected more cautions if we're being completely honest with one another. Gabe Wood will not just get past Tony Shawan, will block his way past Tony Shawan, opens the door for the 64 to follow his way through as well, as Wood tries to get one step closer to the top 10. He gets his way past Shawan, Hardin tries to follow suit as well, but time is winding down as we come towards 7 laps to go. Nunez emerges alongside in this battle for the race lead, and this is going to be tense.
Yeah, this is going to be really difficult because Luis Gonzalez is on fresh tires. He's going to have the advantage here. He's going to probably try and pass here, and that's going to disrupt both Oster and Sanders. And the question will be, who is going to be able to get the advantage here when Nunez gets by? Will it be Oster or will it be Sanders who comes out better here?
To some degree, if Oster lets Nunez pass, then Nunez gets past Sanders as well. It will benefit the factory-backed machine, but you can already see 3-4-10 splits them. It's not a handful of car lengths, it's significantly more than that. And as we reach 5 to go, I think this race is all but in the books. Matt Taylor will stay on the lead lap on the scoring sheet and finish this 1 in 16 spot, and Gavin Saunders will thank Luis Gonzalez Nunez for putting himself between him and Jacob Oster.
Yeah, but it's not done yet, Arjuna. There's still 5 laps to go. We're getting close to the point of no return, so if I'm Gavin Sanders, I'm praying for a caution here very soon.
2 drivers searching for their first Lionheart victory. Nunez carves his way past Saunders, and now with the double dirty air, 3 to go for Jacob Oster to find a way through. This is why we love Richmond. It sets up classic finishes to the very end.
What a race from these two. They've kept themselves clean all race long. They've done exactly what they needed to do in the pits, and now it's just mano a mano. 2 to go here, this time by Arjuna.
He's trying. Oster is trying, but it's going to take a mistake. It's going to take a slip from Saunders. Just a handful of corners left to go as we round ourselves to 1 lap to go, navigating through the chaos. Gavin Sanders has 1 more lap to go before grabbing his first Lionheart win.
Just 2 more sets of corners. He works his way down through 1 and 2, and this is the tricky zone. Once he's passed here, he's basically free and clear.
We've seen plenty of incidents out of turn 2, so a big sigh of relief for the man that's finished second twice, but it won't be 3rd time in a row for Saunders. The 3rd time he's on the podium is the top step as Saunders wins the HyperX 175 at Richmond. A race that was stopped and started and stopped and started more times than we'd care to think about, but staying cool, calm and collected and not letting the interruption of the rhythm get to him. Gavin Saunders steps to the top of the Lionheart Speedway Series, and he reaches HyperX victory lane. Some well-earned donuts. Jacob Oster grabs a little bit of luck to come across the line in second for just his 4th top 5 of the season, while Trevor Malone will provisionally finish on the podium, but still has some questions to be answered when it comes to race control. Andrew, we get there in the end as the fireworks go off, but your reflections on a blockbuster race here at Richmond.
It was a really nice finish to that race. It was so good to get that longest green flag run of the night coming into the finish there, and just hats off to Gavin Sanders and Jacob Oster there. They did exactly what they needed to do, and the main thing to note for the viewers here is just how difficult it was to pick the right strategy here and to follow through all of the different permutations of the different cautions and the availabilities. But Sanders and Oster, they really did choose the right way more often than not today, and it showed, and they came out 1-2, and at the end of the race it really seemed like they had the 2 strongest cars in the field, putting 3.5 seconds over Trevor Malone.
That's running down through those race results. To be fair, Trevor Malone did struggle on the longer runs here today, but Saunders and Oster did show their class at the very end to pull away. Like Andrew mentions, 3.5 seconds the margin between 1st and 3rd. Saunders will be elated, Oster will be dejected, but that is the thrill of victory, the agony of defeat. Shane Coogan, Matt Wagner bookend the top 5 with Watson, Goodman, Hassert, Forsyth and Wood. The top 10, it's Gabe Wood that grabs that final spot inside the top 10. Plus 11 for Saunders, plus 9 for Oster, 24 for Malone, 16 for Coogan, 17 for Wagner, and 15 for Watson as well as Hassert. This was a wild ride, that is for sure. The bucking Bronco saw Andrew Wood shoved backwards, but then fought his way forwards as he finishes 11th in front of Tony Showen and Ricky Harden, while Sam Ryman, after qualifying up in 4th, down in 14th at the end, in front of Matthew Short, Matt Taylor able to survive to grab 16th at the very least, maximizing the points in the championship picture. Mike Rigney 1 lap down after leading the first almost half of this race. He'll be slightly disappointed with that, with Brian Beard, George Anzaldo and Luis Gonzalez Nunez behind him. Nunez hoping for cautions at the end. The gamble did not pay off. Hugo Gallis in 21st with Telegraph in 22nd, the final of our finishers, and then we get to the graveyard. Creighton Carter, Gary Godso, Dean Mould, Dakota Domain, Cody Wenton, Jim Herrick, Isaiah Dupree, and Ron Hacker. They'll round out the 30 cars that attempted the race here at the Richmond Raceway. Unfortunately, not all cars got to the end of the race. And with that said, it leads us into our HyperX post-race show, because the Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit HyperX.com. And let's head down to HyperX Victory Lane, where we're standing by with Gavin Saunders. And Gavin, what a wild race that one was. A fight all the way to the end. How did you stumble onto the strategy call that put you in the right place to fight to the very end?
I was just trying to be conservative more than anything, and I think that was kind of our MO as a team for this race, was to just try and be as safe as possible. But yeah, I put on like lap 11 or something, and then with all the cautions and how they fell, it ended up working out, and it's just so cool. I'm stoked. It's unreal.
In terms of how many cautions we had as well, how does that interrupt your rhythm sitting here in the sim world as well? I always like to talk about the fact that, you know, without physical sensations, it's so much more mentally draining here in the sim, and, you know, when you have to stop and start so many times, it can't do anything except slightly interrupt everything.
Yeah, no, for sure. Especially with a track like Richmond that's so, I mean, it's mentally, on the sim, it's very mentally draining, and I would assume in real life it's very physically and mentally draining. So just being able to flip the switch back on was helpful, and I think everybody who finished the race tonight deserves a pat on the back, that's for sure.
In terms of that fight to the very end, were you ever concerned that Jacob would be able to get alongside? Because it was quite difficult to pass if the leader had clean air. You did not enjoy that luxury.
No, I think that with the clean air, we might have been able to build a bit more of a gap, but Jacob was coming on strong at the end, and I think the fact that there was traffic kind of neutralized all the cars behind the leader of the train. So it kind of, once you got the restart going, we saw on the restarts prior, it kind of opened up from a 3/10 gap to a 5/10 gap to a 7/10 gap, and then it kind of stabilized. And from there, it was just kind of managing and knowing where Jacob might be at the end. And once Louise messaged that he was going to pit, then it kind of, the race was on, right? So it ended up working out pretty good at the end there.
It was a great battle. Gavin Saunders on top after 2 second-place finishes in 2022, but it was the push from Jacob Oster that kept us entertained. And Jacob, hard fight, but all the way to the end. At least you had some luck here in this 2022 Lionheart Speedway Series.
Well, I'm glad I kept you entertained for a little bit there. I was not entertained, especially after I turned into Danny Sullivan and spun. It's interesting, this track combo in this car. It's a lot different from the IR-18, and it's a whole different mindset to think. And I was very, very happy to see that the cautions start to come our way. That, that was a tactical spin, I'm sure. So, we got the cautions to fall away a little bit. Chris is in my ear telling me, okay, do you want to go for the win? Or are you okay with a 6th place finish? I'm like, I don't want to finish 6th again. So I ended up going to finish 2nd again. So, we'll get to P1 eventually. I got a pole in IndyCar, so I'm working my way up.
Hey, to be fair, it took Gavin a couple of 2nd place finishes as well before he grabbed that first victory. In terms of the fight at the end, what more could you really have done to have worked your way forward?
Not much. I was pushing as hard as I could. Maybe I could have hit turn 1 and 2 a little bit better. Whenever Gavin hit the mustard at one point, he got real loose. I had an opportunity to pass him, but I was trying to just stay in his rearview mirror the entire time and see if he did it again. But he got real scared of that yellow line and started to shy away from it, which didn't turn out being well for him. But you can't really do much in the dirty air here at all, and there's not a lot of dirty air, but there's no suck. It's not like the IR-18. You can't just draft up behind somebody and pass them. You're kind of just stuck there. You need to get a run, and I could just not get enough momentum on him to pass him.
Couple more races to close out this season. What are you looking forward to in terms of Kansas and Auto Club still left in 2022?
Auto Club, because Kansas will just be a sleeper, honestly. If it's anything like Chicagoland, it'll be somewhat fun, but Auto Club will be where the real joy's at. That'll be interesting, especially if it's at night. Some people will be very crazy.
Jacob trying to give pointers to Andrew Kinsella listening on in the commentary booth. Thanks for joining us, Jacob. Congratulations on your second place finish of 2022. We'll head to Trevor Malone, who finishes this race on the final step of the podium. And Trevor, if I can be completely fair, while you had the luck of being up there in the caution and then took full advantage of it, did look like you were struggling a little bit on the longer run, especially with how much dirty air we had in today's race.
Indeed. I feel completely awful, by the way, for Andrew. I tried to arc it in there a little bit better, but I don't know. I guess he was coming down as well to pass George, and we both collided, and I feel awful about that. I just wanted to apologize for that. But yeah, later in the race, I couldn't get a feel for it. It just got tighter and tighter and tighter coming off the corner. So I just backed it off as much as possible and just cruised to the finish. There was no way I was going to catch the 2 leaders.
After starting at the back of the field, how do you approach this race when it comes to, especially with an end-of-line penalty, right? How do you think about this race with strategy and trying to take advantage? Because clearly whatever you planned, it worked out perfectly.
Yeah, I started literally last, and I just sent it. I was just, the guys in the back were really slow back there, so I just decided to keep passing, and then run it dry on fuel, because it seemed like the leaders were going to stay out, and I just played the game and followed the leaders, and I guess it worked out.
In terms of this rest of the season, what are you planning for Kansas and Auto Club? I'm guessing if you sent it here at Richmond, we should expect plenty more sends for the rest of the year.
Yep, sending it everywhere. Just got to do it.
Well, you've got 7 days to turn around and go again at Kansas. I'm glad that you brought up the incident with Andrew, because it's always great when the drivers take the initiative. I could tell that it was something that was weighing on you, so thank you for those words, Trevor. Congratulations on the podium. We'll see you next time out.
Thanks, guys.
Rounding out our post-race interviews, as always, delighted to be able to speak to the drivers. We appreciate them taking a couple of minutes out of their post-race celebrations to join us. But Andrew, I mean, we got through this race. It took a while, but we are at the end, and now we look forward to what Jacob Oster thinks is going to be a rather pedestrian race at Kansas as the setup maker for the Lionheart Speedway Series. What do you have in mind for the drivers?
I mean, I don't know whether to make his wish come true and blame it all on Jacob next week, or give him something a little bit more fun like I was planning to. But no, it should be a good race next time out at Kansas. As I said at the top, it to me is the most fun out of the 1.5 D-shaped ovals, maybe other than Kentucky, because Kentucky, the surface there is so wide and rough that it allows more fall off. But with Kansas, it'll be a lot of side-by-side action. There'll be some tire fall off, but at the same time, a really competitive race, and should be a good time.
I'm just saying that Jacob has given you the perfect excuse to make it a snoozer, and you very much can blame him. 100% of the blame will go in his direction. That is next week, though. We have a relatively quiet week of Lionheart competition, so not much left for us to do other than say goodbye and thank those that make all of this possible, starting with the title sponsor of the 2022 Lionheart Speedway Series. Moser Racing is revolutionizing sim racing with the development of industry-leading hardware and software products like their R9 direct drive wheelbase and GS steering wheel. Featuring zero-delay wireless technology and made from high-end materials, Moser Racing delivers the precision you need to reach victory lane. The Lionheart Racing Series is powered by HyperX, makers of premier gaming gear like the legendary ultra-comfortable Cloud line of gaming headsets. Whatever you play, however you play, HyperX knows we're all gamers. For more information on HyperX products, visit hyperx.com. You're passionate about sim racing, but it always feels a little flat compared to the feeling of driving a real car. Now you can actually feel what it's like to drive a race car. Butt Kicker haptic hardware and software are easy to install and let you feel every bump in the track, slip of your tire, and engine redline. The tactile feedback is so accurate and realistic, you'll be driving faster and having more fun than ever before. Next Level Racing is an industry-leading cockpit and motion simulator manufacturer devoted to creating the most immersive experience possible for the global sim racing community. Take your racing to the next level and visit nextlevelracing.com. And Gomez Sim Industries, the makers of high-end esports equipment and controls, precision built using nothing but the best materials, Available today. Passion and handmade craftsmanship drive each made-to-order build, creating a driving experience like no other. Visit GomezSimIndustries.com. And it's not just them, but so many more that make this possible. So to learn about the partners of the Lionheart Racing Series or about the 3 competitions the sanctioning body puts forward, head to LionheartRacingSeries.com. And don't forget, you can stay connected on social media with latest news in the world of all things Lionheart. Well, we got through this one. It wasn't 17 cautions, but it felt like it. Under the nightlights at Richmond, it's Gavin Saunders that walks away the newest member of the Lionheart winning community. 7 days from today, the DW12s will do it again, this time for the Next Level Racing 200 at the Kansas Speedway. That race and every race live exclusively on RaceSpot TV and ESTV. For now, we thank you for joining us. For Andrew Kinsella, alongside myself, Arjuna Kankipati, thank you for your company. We'll see you next time. For now, we celebrate Gavin Saunders in HyperX Victory Lane.